The greatest lies ever told to humanity by medicine is that salt is bad for you and that salt increases your blood pressure. It does not, and you have been lied to. High blood pressure drugs are a massive, massive boon for the big pharma drug complex. They sell tons of these drugs. In 2016, Tel Aviv University decided to do the largest research study ever on high blood pressure. 2016, it's only 8 years ago. They actually followed 500,000 people in 49 different countries for 10 years. The people with the best average blood pressure were those who ate the most salt in their diet every day. So let me give you some perspective. So you have the FDA saying 22 to 2,400. The American Medical Association and the American Heart Association is telling you half of that is only good. Well, the truth is the actual best amount of salt that you should be consuming every day to keep your blood pressure normal is between 6,000 milligrams and 9,000 milligrams of salt.
No. Is salt really bad for you or not? He recommends consuming 6,000 milligrams to 9,000 milligrams of salt. I guess he meant sodium. In the screenshot he shared, the researchers were talking about sodium intake, because confusing salt and sodium is a small yet a really huge difference. But besides that, I would actually love to read the study he shared on the screen. I tried searching in Google Scholar, PubMed, and even used Google itself, and I couldn't find the study. The issues I have with these influencers, doctors, whatever, I put them all in the same boat, is the following. Everybody can share one study. What I would love to see him actually share and talk about is the totality of evidence. Let's make a bet. You are finding yourself in a casino, but instead of betting with money, you are betting with your health. Would you place a bet, and again, you are risking your health here, on something that has one study backing it up? Or would you bet your health against something that has the totality of evidence backing it up? I'm not a betting man, but I would probably place my bets and odds on the totality of evidence. Now, if you start looking into the research and sodium consumption and, for example, cardiovascular disease risk, you will see that indeed we can find a J-shaped curve. We can interpret a J-shaped curve such as this as follows. The risk for getting heart failure increases at lower intakes of sodium, decreases at moderate intakes, and stays at a lower risk at higher intakes of sodium. This is indicating that lower sodium intakes are associated with a higher increased risk for heart failure. This is not the only study resulting in a J-shaped curve. So is this man right that we should all consume more sodium? No. And I will tell you exactly why. We excrete roughly around 90 to 95% of the sodium we consume. Hence, a 24-hour urinary test is the best lie detector. But there's a catch. And this catch is described really well in a systematic review and meta-analysis published in 2018 by Lucco and colleagues. It is noteworthy, though, that diet usually changes meal to meal and day to day. Therefore, to determine a person's usual salt intake, multiple 24-hour urine samples are required. All the studies I've read so far that resulted in a J-shaped curve included studies that have done just one 24-hour urinary test or used food frequency questionnaires to assess the sodium intake. And this problem is highlighted perfectly in the next study published by Enkbering and colleagues. This study looked at sodium intake and its association of cardiovascular events and death. The dark lines are the studies that used a 24-hour urinary test once. The gray lines are the studies that used multiple 24-hour urinary tests. The first graph shows the sodium intake of 1 year, while the second graph shows sodium intake for 5 years. The results remain constant. And this was, of course, not the only study that found this strong association. This study, published in 2021 by Yuan Ma and colleagues, and I'm sorry, I totally butchered your name, looked at sodium and potassium intake and their association with cardiovascular disease risks. The lowest risks for cardiovascular disease were at the lowest sodium intakes in this study as well. Guidelines recommend between 5 to 6 grams of salt per day. This is why it's so important to listen to domain-specific experts, because it's exactly these experts that know the details that you have to look for when we are interpreting scientific literature. What are your thoughts about this topic? Feel free to let me know in the comment section. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you during my next video.